meeting this evening with a surprise Wahine presenter. So I'll do some quick required and housekeeping announcements, and then we'll get me off and let you listen to the people you came to listen to. So our first announcement is, as always, we ask everyone to remember the Maui Food Bank. You don't have to be a member to participate in these meetings, but we do ask you to kind of pay it forward and contribute to the Maui Food Bank in any way you can. As most of you know, when we had the live meetings, we had a food gathering at each meeting. We can't do that anymore, but we ask you to please remember the Maui Food Bank. When we hear that more than 10% of Maui's kupuna and kihei go to bed hungry often, this is the least we can do for them. And very quickly, membership, please remember, if you're not a member, consider joining. We're a membership organization. No members, no organization. And if you are a member, please try and be current. We do send out announcements, but I know they get lost sometimes. So check in once in a while to make sure you're current. And then we'll express happy holidays for Thanksgiving, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, New Year's, and any that I missed. The only holiday greeting we will not give you is Happy Martin Luther King Day, because we'll be back on January 17th with our next meeting. So the required meeting at the November general membership meeting is to announce who the members elected for the 2022 board. Board members run for a one-year term and then are subject to re-election or not. This year, it's pretty simple. Those of you who have been followers for a while, yep, it's the same 10 guys. We didn't get anybody new, but fortunately, the 10 who are here for 2021 all agreed to come back in 2022. We do have to announce their names, so I'll go through them quickly. Andrew Bira, Harry Hecht, Daniel Canahelli, Mike Moran, Adele Rugg, Shar Schulenberg, Patricia Stillwell, Mary Trotto, Randy Wagner, and Rob Weltman. And for our meeting tonight, in reverse order of presentation, our cleanup presenter will be our County Representative Kelly King, who is just back from the COP26 in Scotland. So we really appreciate that she's here. She came back and hit the ground running. 9 a.m. Monday morning, she was back at County Council and participated since then 4 meetings already this week, 2 and 2. And yet here she is coming to participate for us this evening. So she'll be in the cleanup position. In the middle, we have, we said, is one indicator of KCA's long-term concern for South Maui water issues. Our most frequent KCA presenter this century is with us tonight, environmental scientist and water quality expert, Robin Knox. So she adds one more chink to her record as presenters. And then our leadoff presenter is our South Maui State Rep, Tina Wilderberger, who, for those of you who are not familiar with Tina, she had a race with the Energizer Bunny, and he lost badly. He ran out of juice. This lady was still moving. So will give the first presentation. But I mentioned a special designated pinch hitter coming up, and that is Dr. Amanda Cording, who is only going to speak to us for a few minutes this evening. She did offer to do more, but we had kind of things locked in place. But she's going to give a brief update on the Kihei Master Drainage Plan that she completed quite some time ago. But fear not, she will be back on January 17th, 2022. And the last announcement is for questions. We will allow a little bit of time after each presenter. So if you have questions for Tina, type them in, and then we'll have a little bit of time to answer for her to answer those questions. If there's too many, we'll have to move on. And then at the end of the meeting, after Kelly concludes, any time left, we can go back and see if there's any unanswered questions. Okay, so that's it for the county here. We're going to get out of the way and let Representative Tina Wilderberger take over. Tina, take it away, please.
Aloha, South Maui, Kihei. Thank you to the Kihei Community Association, as always, to their all volunteer board who are doing so much important work, making sure that Kihei has a voice both at the county government and in our state government. So I'm privileged to work with everyone on KCA. I'm privileged to work with Amanda and Robin on all of our incredibly important environmental issues, particularly as it relates to handling water, our wetlands, and our drainage with approaching sea level rise. Yes.
Excuse me, right away, see these amateurs, I flubbed up. Amanda was supposed to go first for a couple of minutes.
Okay, take it away, Amanda.
She's got a baby in the tub, so we gotta let her go first.
My
apologies, guys. Thank you. Okay, Amanda.
Sorry, Tina, I won't be very long at all. Aloha, everyone. My name is Amanda Cording. I just wanted to give you a brief update on the status of the Kihei Drainage Master Plan Ecological Alternatives Analysis that we've completed for Waipuʻulani and Kulani-Hakoi districts. We completed it in September 2020 as a draft, and it was done at the request of KCA. The county commissioned the study to evaluate ecological alternatives, the feasibility of doing something a little bit different to the Kihei Drainage Master Plan. So we provided our draft assessment to the county last year, and we have received comments back. We need to update a few items, including conformance to some county standards. And hopefully we will have a draft for public review finally early next year. So I hope to have updates specifically regarding that assessment at the January meeting. Even if they're preliminary, we will be able to release the document, and we welcome all feedback from the community.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And we really, really look forward to seeing you back in January to give us more information. And give your baby a good hug for the Kihei Community Association. Okay, now Tina, now that I've uncovered the screw up, or Rob uncovered it for me. Now, Tina Wilderberger, please.
I'm back. I won't re-thank everybody. I will call that POW. And I'm thrilled to be here and joining you with a little update on the work that me and my staff have been doing throughout the summer and fall. Here we come up to almost imminent time for session, where I'm on the countdown to go back to Oahu. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint with you and give you a little update about what's going on in our office. And forgive me, I am not the best. Here we go. Can everybody see my screen? Just doing a video check.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. First and foremost, and most excellent to announce, our lifeguards are back on Big Beach today. First day, year and a half. We did not have any lifeguards. It was in my opinion, a snafu between the state and the county working together. Again, so many of our challenges point to those coordination issues that exist. I want to give a big shout out to Vice Chair, Councilmember Kiani Rollins-Fernandez, and our brand new Fire Chief, Brad Ventura, who worked very hard to make sure that we get guards back on McKenna Beach before festive season begins next week. We had several fatalities in the year and a half where there were no guards, and that's what's most important about having lifeguards. It's not so much about response, but it's about them being able to talk to people who look like they obviously don't know what they're doing in the ocean and need some guidance and some help in navigating that shore break at Big Beach. So that's really great news, and my mahalos to everybody who worked really hard to have that happen before the holidays. I bet Kelly will talk about this, and I'm gonna say thank you to her so much. Kelly, the council members are setting up a district offices, and South Maui now has a district office, and Kelly was kind enough to give me a spot in that office. So as soon as we don't have COVID issues, I'll be able to receive and talk to constituents in this district office and have a welcoming space for people to come and share their mana'o and their concerns or ideas about our community. So I'm really thrilled to be sharing that space, and my thanks to Kelly King for being so generous and extending this new space to the State House rep, whoever that might be sitting in that seat. We now have a space in South Maui to share that I had been using Nalu's as my office. So this is a big upgrade. I've got an update for Kihei High School. We had a bittersweet victory at the end of October. The Land Use Commission reaffirmed the need for GSPC, stands for Grade Separated Pedestrian Crossing. And that just means that we don't want kids crossing the street, crossing the highway during our commute times. It's been a huge battle. This requirement has been in place by the Land Use Committee, the Land Use Commission since 2013. The DOE and the DOT have been dragging on this issue, and they are now claiming that it's going to delay the high school for 5 or 6 years. I've been working very closely with Kihei Community Association to get safe crossing for the kids so that we can have a reasonably developed community that isn't dependent on vehicles, that prioritizes pedestrian and bicycling. And we have a lot of work to do in that still yet. The roundabout that we have been working hard for has been approved, and it is going to be installed. The Deputy Director of the Department of Transportation, Ed Sniffen, is forecasting a finish time of July of 2022. And they have already started announcing closures for 1 lane or so northbound on Piilani Highway. And I'm trying to make sure I share that information on socials so that everybody is aware. While that work is being done, it's going to be really important to give some extra time. Traversing Kihei can be frustrating, and I conducted my own self-experiment. I have the tendency to drive faster than perhaps someone should, and I actually set my cruise control when they reduced the speed limit down to 30 miles an hour. My phone and email blew up with that. Everybody was super upset about that. But I went out, I conducted a little experiment. I set my cruise control at 30 miles an hour, and I found myself crossing the length of Kihei faster than I would by speeding and approaching a red light, speeding up to the next light and sitting at the red light. And instead of driving 30 miles an hour slowly out of Kihei, I found myself getting green lights and getting out of Kihei in even faster time. So while that new light, the temporary light at Kulani Hakoi, seems like it's sucking your soul, notice that it's only about a 2-minute light at the very most, and you're actually getting through Kihei without too much extra delay. Go ahead and time it, because psychologically it feels like it's longer. Our planning department is doing a fantastic job in community outreach, and they want to hear from you. So please reach out. The We Are South Maui at mauicounty.gov will come and speak to your group. They'll set up a meeting. For instance, maybe you're in the Maui Meadows area, and the Maui Meadows Community Association can ask to have a meeting with We Are South Maui. If you have any issues or things that ideas and improvements for our community, now's the time to speak up. Check out the website. They've got interactive, I don't know what you call them, interactive slides where you can give input, comments, places where you'd like to see perhaps a pedestrian crossing, perhaps a stoplight, perhaps a electric vehicle charging station, any ideas that you have for the community. They want to hear them. And we're in the planning phase now, so now's the time. Please reach out, take a look at that website and share your mana'o. Our HARP team, Hawaii Hazards Awareness and Resiliency Program, is still actively working. Just last week, we had a seminar with the HIEMA Vulnerabilities Coordinator, David Lopez. He flew over from Oahu and presented to our group at the Pacific Disaster Center. This is our core team of people who cross over to Kihei Community Association. And of course, Bud Picrone. I'm very grateful to have Wailea Community Association also participating with this. And when my PowerPoint is done, I'll show you the beautiful signage that we got for completing our program that will be installed on South Kihei Road. We are still doing a lot of great work, and our future plans include assisting community with operations, where we have a Facebook group for South Maui HARP. We did COVID surge testing up in North Kihei, and our HARP volunteers helped execute that. We are participating in the community plan updates. We are doing quarterly meetings and annual document reviews and revisions. So our document is a live document. Our future plans include doing CPR training, hopefully picking back up after when we're post-pandemic, the CERT program. Skywarn is another pattern, another program that you can learn about weather prediction. Maui Police Department traffic control, and Dr. Mary is already a ham radio operator. As I mentioned, I'm getting ready to go back to the state capitol. I've been working on my bill package since this summer. That's what my staff and I have been working with community members. Beginning on the left side of my PowerPoint, these bills are sort of constituent request items. And so in the second year of the biennium, I'm allowed to present 10 bills. So we're doing a bill on watershed protection. We're doing a bill on sustainable tourism. Basically, we think that the work that the HTA directors are doing now is very good work, but the statute that's in our Hawaii revised statute, that language still mostly focuses on marketing. And so we're changing that language to management so that the HRS matches the need to do more management versus marketing. We're doing an employment law bill. Basically, I was just stunned to find this language of master slave actually in our state statute, and we've got to remove that language. And so I'm looking forward to putting that bill forward. Friends of Little Beach have reorganized from the 90s. Many residents are unhappy with the curtailing of access to Little Beach, and I have been working with those folks to try to bring something to the table. We don't have a bill formed just yet, but we're working on something to try to bring a reasonable compromise rather than what I like to call plantation era patriarchal, puritanical, prohibitionist mentality. We're also going to work on a bill to give land back to Native Hawaiians. I was my interest was piqued by a bill that the California governor just signed, giving land back that was taken from African Americans 100 years ago, not unlike what has happened in Hawaii. So I hope to fashion a bill very similar to that was just passed in California. I'm going to do a tenants' rights bill. We have a lot of issues, obviously, with evictions during the pandemic. Even though there was an eviction moratorium, sale of property was an exemption, and so many people lost their housing. I don't feel that a very strong tenants' right bill will do well. So my bill will be kind of a watered down tenants' rights bill that will, if someone gets evicted for property sale, depending on how long they've been on that property, this law will demand that the landlord compensate the evicted tenant in a graduated manner. If they're there for less than 5 years, it's 1 month rent. If they're there for more than 5 years, it's 2 months rent. And if they have been there for 10 years, then they get 3 months rent, cash paid back out of the sale of the property to the tenant that's being evicted. We're working on some language on the sunshine law, working on unemployment overpayments to get those forgiven if unemployment department overpaid someone at no fault of that person. We've seen the DLIR come back to people and demand money back, which is for people that are not working is just really kind of predatory. I want to ban two-stroke motors. That's going to be unpopular with the landscapers and some scooter owners, but we've had so many people ask me about these very loud, disruptive machinery that can be replaced with electric motors now. When I learned that a two-stroke motor running for an hour creates more greenhouse gas than a Ford F-150 driving from Texas to California, I decided it's time for the two-stroke motors to be a bygone era. I've had a couple constituents reach out about clean air regarding secondhand smoke, both cigarette smoke and cannabis smoke. And we're going to write a bill that deals with Clean Air Bill of Rights. So that's it for my bill package. I'm happy to work with constituents that are interested in amending our bills and laws. So please reach out to my office. We're all set. I'm maxed out for this session, but we always have next year. It takes a while to get it through the process, and just as far as drafting and vetting. And so we do this work all summer and all fall. So we're ready for the session starting in January. And for those of you who are interested but unfamiliar, the timeline for our bill process, basically when we go back to the Capitol, January is set for bill introduction. We begin sessions and hearings in mid-January. In February, each chamber, both the House and the Senate, hears their own bills. And then in March, the bills that made it through the process cross over to the opposite chamber. So in March, the House hears the Senate bills and the Senate hears the House bills. And then in April, what's happening? In late April, the bills that made it through conference will go all the way to the governor's desk, and he has quite a bit of time to either veto or sign the laws. So that's our 6th to 7th month process of sausage making, as they like to call it. But please reach out if you want to work on everything. No idea is a bad idea. It takes all of us to do this work. And we all want a better community, and the more people that participate, the better we end up. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about where you can get a vaccine. And so the MauiNuiStrong.info website is a great website that's set up by the county, shows all of the vaccine and testing places where you can get both vaccine and tests. And on the 17th and 23rd, they're going to have vaccine pop-up clinics at St. Teresa's Church, among all the other places listed here. You can get COVID testing also at Minute Medical, at the Wailea Pharmacy, and at Doctors on Call in Wailea. Most of them you have to sign up for, but you can do walk-ins at the Wailea Pharmacy. And that's all I have for you today. I'm thrilled to be invited to chat with you. Thank you for your time and your attention. I'm gonna stop my screen share, I hope. And back to Zoom. And thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Tina. That was excellent. I mean, I tend to think that I'm pretty akamai what's going on here. I learned a lot, so I have to think a lot of us learned a lot too. We were looking for questions in the chat, and there's really only I only see one question so far. Can you see them, Tina? In the
Oh,
chat?
yes, let's see. Let's see.
Said-
Let's see.
That one from John T.
John.
Yeah.
So I am following the guidance in the studies about roundabouts that have been exhaustively pursued by Kihei Community Association, that roundabouts keep cars moving. Unlike a stoplight with left-hand turn signals and alternate where you can sit for 2 minutes. It's not uncommon when Kihei is really busy, especially at the busier intersections, to sit for 2 full minutes, and that backs up traffic. Roundabouts allow cars to keep moving. They have to move slower, but it keeps them moving. If we are successful in getting the multi-lane roundabout and pedestrian separated crossing, we will have the best of both worlds. If the Department of Transportation and the Department of Education continue to stonewall on this pedestrian separated crossing and put kids in the roundabout, which is what they're asking for. If they put kids in the roundabout, that is going to destroy Kihei's commutes at both the 8 o'clock interval and the 3 o'clock interval. And those are our shift changes. And so we are really just beseeching and begging and pleading with these state agencies to listen to us. But John, a lot of people share your concerns. I'm optimistic that this is going to be of good benefit. The roundabout that exists in Kihei already has prevented gridlock, where we have so many cars coming and going from the Safeway shopping center, but we have no backup at all whatsoever at the roundabout that exists there. And the roundabout that they put in Kehalani behind the golf course and Cafe Olay back there in Wailuku changed those people's lives. That 4-way stop was killing those people. And that is a whole new life experience for those folks going to the elementary school that's there and the folks that are commuting to work. So I am not a transportation expert, but I am relying on the individuals that have studied this, who are promoting this. And, you know, I think it's a great idea. It is going to be the state's very first multi-lane roundabout. And so there will be a learning curve, I'm certain, but I think that we're going to be okay.
Thanks, Tina. I don't see any other questions yet. I would just comment for KCA. We agree with everything you said. That's been our experience. When the research was done, KCA even paid for a professional opinion, and that's what we got, that the roundabouts, number one, roundabouts save lives. You eliminate that T-bone accident, which is the most deadly. And as you correctly state, in my opinion, you correctly stated, the roundabouts are engineered to slow cars down.
But keep them moving and keep them moving.
Absolutely, that's it. And just as you gave us the example of your own experience, you saw how that worked, just moving along at a steady pace. You get there just as quick, and you know it saves gas. So it's less polluting. There's so many advantages, but the key point you made, if the state is going to force pedestrian crossing, that will destroy the flow around it. Yep.
That will ruin it. It will be ruinous if they do not do what they should be doing, what the Land Use Commission has said they should do, what the community has been asking for. It's an example of outrageous state of Oahu imposition on our communities. Can I please show my HARP signs really quick? These are the signs that we have that are going to be installed at some Kihei Gateway area. We've got this HARP sign right here, and then this storm ready sign here. And we have another tsunami ready sign also from our work, getting HARP certified. So I'm looking forward to working with Rowena Dag of the Department of Public Works and get those installed at Kihei's Gateway. I'd love to arrange for like a welcome to Kihei sign similar to what Oluwalu has, or some of the other communities. We don't really have a welcome to Kihei sign. So I thought that that would be something to work on, that we could get something like that to go with our preparedness signage. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure joining you today, and reach out to my office anytime if I can be of any assistance. Mahalo.
Thank you so much, Tina. And I would just direct everybody's attention. We did get a couple of comments about the roundabouts from two different folks. So just some information. They're not really questions, but they're kind of a clarification. And then I love the last one. They're all over the world. Let's get Maui involved in these. So thank you so much, Tina. That was outstanding, and thank you for addressing the one extensive question. So again, I'm trying to stop talking here, and let's get our next presenter up. She gets one more check as the most frequent presenter at KCA, at least in the 20th century, and that is Robin Knox. Go ahead, Robin, take it away.
Aloha, thank you for having me today to talk one more time. And of course, the subject is always water related if I'm talking about it. I'm gonna, today I'm representing the Save the Wetlands Hui, and I'm gonna share my screen so that you can see their, let's see if I can find the share screen button. Going to share what we're doing with Save the Wetland Hui. There we go. You should be seeing my screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. So let's see if I can make the slides go now. One moment. Let's see. I think they're hidden behind the, there we go. PowerPoint. Okay. Yeah. All right, there we go. Had it all set up, but then the buttons got hidden from me, so. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay, why? Maybe I shared the wrong screen. Sorry, guys, this worked a few minutes ago.
No worries, Robin.
Okay.
Take your time.
Let me stop sharing and then see if I can figure it out. Share screen. Try a different option this time and see if it works.
Okay, we can see it.
You can see it, but it's not moving for me. Let's see. Let me bet it's behind this screen. Okay. Well, I'm usually pretty good at Zoom. Sorry, you guys. Okay, try one more time. Share screen. Let me try to get it completely off of here. Okay.
Robin, I know nothing, but we have a comment here. It says it's working. Just use space or right arrow to progress the slides.
Okay. So let's see if it works this time. Yes, it's working this time. Great. Okay, thank you, everyone. This is on behalf of the Save the Wetlands Hui, who I've been working with since June. We received a grant from the Mayor's Office of Economic Development, and through the support of our fiscal sponsor and extreme restoration guidance people, Hawaii Island Land Trust, or excuse me, Hawaii Land Trust. And I'll talk a little bit about our project scope, and the exciting parts to me are the wetlands inventory and mapping and the wetland restoration. And of course, today I'm doing part of the public education and stakeholder outreach by letting you all know what we're doing. Save the Wetlands Hui, who are we? Well, it started out with a group of people that every time a property was being developed.
Robin, we're not seeing it now.
Oh, you're not seeing it?
No.
Wow. Okay. You were seeing it before?
Only not once you said there it is that you had it to move, but we weren't seeing it then.
So are you seeing the scope of work and the county logo
No.
right now?
All we're seeing is you.
Oh.
Yep.
Hi.
You need to share screen. You need to do the share screen again.
Okay. So. Zoom.
Robin, did you click on the green button at the bottom of the screen? The
Yeah,
share
I did. It's the problem is I think I have too many screens. Okay, now what are you seeing?
Yes, now we see it. Save the
Okay.
wetlands.
All right, you're seeing the county logo here?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now.
Mahalo to our
right.
sponsors. Yes.
I am so sorry. Yeah. All right. Still seeing it, right?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. So who is the Save the Wetlands Hui? When in recent years, whenever there were properties being developed in Kihei, a lot of these properties were areas that the community valued and thought were wetlands, even though oftentimes the developers, engineers, or whoever would say, no, those aren't wetlands. So these same people kept showing up time and again, and we decided to hui up people like Shar Schulenberg, myself, Cody Nemeth, Robert Aldrich, Vernon Kalani Cow. So we were, time and again coming together. So we said, we should just form a hui. And our hui has grown because so many other people value the wetlands and want to join us in our mission to protect and restore the wetlands in Maui County. This on the left here is Emily Piani. She's our volunteer coordinator and field supervisor. And you might or might not, with all the masks and hats and sunglasses, recognize some of these folks over here, these Mana Wahine. We have Brandy Corpus, who runs the Rooted Keikahi Meka Aina nonprofit that's been helping us. And here's our representative, Tina Wilderberger, and our county councilwoman, Kelly King. And we get everyone, we get the Kane, we get the aunties, we get the keiki coming, the Girl Scouts come, it's lots of fun. One of the pivotal questions that comes up, and it's harder to answer than you would think, is what's a wetland? And people immediately think of something like Kealia Pond. As someone said to me, well, it's a wetland if it's wet, right? It's not quite that simple, but some of them are obvious, like Kealia Pond. Where it starts to get less obvious is when you see something like this middle photo. This is from our restoration area. A lot of Kihei looks very dry and has a lot of invasive plants and dusty, and it doesn't look like a wetland. But as we'll learn, if you dig down a little bit in this soil, you will find moist soil, you'll find wetland plants growing here, and you can dig down and find water in less than 2 feet. Another way to tell a wetland, if you look at this on the bottom left, see these salt deposits. That is a sign of a wetland. We have artificial wetlands in Kihei. These were mitigation wetlands behind Longs and Azeka Plaza. It was easier to tell the wetlands back in the 60s before all the development because there were bigger bodies of water evident in pools. And most of those have disappeared due to the hydrologic changes brought about by development. And your neighborhood may be a wetland. Brandy was so surprised. She said, wow, I never realized I was living in a wetland. But you know, if we look at where wetlands used to be, where wetlands might be in the future, and where there are wetland functions on the land, we see that we've built a lot of neighborhoods in the wetlands, and there's not that many left. So the definition, even the scientific authorities in all the government agencies cannot agree on the definition of a wetland. And there's a lot of different wording and different ways to look at it. There's an international convention on it. The one that most people are familiar with is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And what I want you to know is that when the Army Corps of Engineers says something is a wetland, it means it's a wetland that the Clean Water Act has jurisdiction over. If they say it's a jurisdictional wetland, that they can issue permits to manage that wetland. But if they say it's not a jurisdictional wetland, that doesn't mean it's not a wetland. It just means that the Clean Water Act doesn't have any authority over that wetland. So that's really important to understand. The Corps of Engineers does not define what is a wetland. They only define which wetlands the Clean Water Act has authority over. And that'll be more important, as you'll see as we go on. One of the things we like, the WHOI likes about this Ramsar international definition is it includes things like man-made or artificial wetlands like fish ponds, salt pans, or lo'ikalo. They look at all the different ways that wetlands can be: natural, artificial, permanent, temporary, static, flowing, fresh, brackish, salt, marine. It's basically any shallow water. It can be along rivers, it can be coastal zones, and around islands. So a lot of their definition fits Maui. And the real experts, the people that have to map the wetlands for the federal government, say that there is no indisputable definition because the wetlands are so diverse. And we're actually talking about a continuum or a gradient between wet and dry lands. And not only that, it keeps changing depending on how much it's rained. So the wetlands can shrink and grow. So it's not that easy of a thing to define. One of the things that the WHOI likes is these, the Fish and Wildlife Service has this guidance that characterizes wetlands and classifies them. And one of the things in there that some of the other definitions didn't have is ecological system function. Wetlands can look very different. Here you have a water quality scientist at the surface. She thinks looks one way, and these soil scientists with their heads underground there, they think it looks different. So we have to realize that how you define a wetland is based on why you're making a definition and what your perspective is. So our proposal's long in its wording if I gave you all the specifics, but it's pretty simple actually. It's land that periodically is inundated, meaning flooded, or saturated, which means water may not be on the surface, but under the soil is saturated underneath. So it's periodically inundated or saturated by water above or below ground. Due to that inundation, it has water-loving plants, or the land has soils that show signs of being inundated or saturated, which really changes the chemistry. So that's an important thing. And there's also things like wetland indicators, salt, cracked soil, high water marks, debris drift that tell you that water's been there. It's land that provides wetland function and values, which we'll talk about in a minute. And it's land that maybe was a wetland in the past or maybe in the future, even if you can't see it right now. And I do want to point out that we say "are" because we believe in a broad definition that's inclusive rather than exclusive when we're looking to protect something that's very valuable. Many of the other definitions that the federal agencies use have "and," So you would have to have all three things of the water, the plants, and the soils in order to be considered a wetland. So anytime someone tells you something about a wetland, you have to ask them, how did they define it and why were they defining it? So we're very, as I said, focused on the ecological services that are delivered to our community by the functions of wetlands. And these are very valuable services, and that's why we care. So here's some of the functions and values. Sediment attenuation and reduction. The sediments settle in the wetlands. That can help with erosion control, improve water quality in streams and in the ocean, improve fishing. And if you were pulling drinking water from the area where that sediment is ending up, you would also be improving drinking water. Nutrient and chemical attenuation and reduction, again, better water quality, takes up waste materials, and the soils can actually absorb a lot of different pollutants. Flood attenuation and storage. This one's huge for Kihei. It helps with flood control and public safety, and water that sits in a wetland and infiltrates instead of running down to the ocean actually helps put fresh water back into our aquifer, which is important with sea level rise and the fact that salt water is going to come further into our aquifer as the seas rise. Plant community abundance and diversity. Even some of our most degraded wetlands, like the one we're working in right now, actually have quite a bit of native plants left. And if we care for them, we can have that diversity of plant life that attracts the diversity of animal life. And it's a haven for native plants. And it's a place for education and research. You can even do agriculture in a wetland, and we have one in Kihei where that's happening. It's open space. People value the aesthetics. And then there's historical and cultural importance, which is something that we also have here in Kihei. So very important from that perspective. Fish and wildlife habitat, again, some of the same things. People like to bird watch. People who live in a city like to have an open space with a beautiful wetland. Groundwater recharge and discharge, it really helps protect our fresh water from the ocean water coming in. Shoreline and stream bank anchoring so that streams don't erode so much, that the shoreline, which we know is eroding badly, the wetlands can help buffer that from the ocean. And a recent one that got added to these discussions is carbon sequestration. And that is, helps to mitigate climate change, because wetlands actually will take up carbon. And if you disturb wetlands by developing them, you're going to be releasing carbon. So they have been collecting carbon for, eons. And in Kihei, we've had significant wetland loss. These are, there was a study done in 1965 that said there was 199 acres. And I'll just say, from what we know geologically, we don't have aerial photos from the 1700s or whatever, but we know there was actually a lot more than 199 acres in Kihei at one time. But in 65, somebody mapped 199 acres. By 91, that had gotten to be 111 acres, so 50% reduction there. By 2000, they had actually come and filled in. So sometimes shopping centers, neighborhoods are on a wetland and you may not realize it because they filled it in with dirt. So draining wetlands, filling in wetlands, that changes the hydrology in our watershed, and that has a lot of negative consequences. There was a report in 2015 by a lady named Jen Shinko, and she said that we're down to 20 acres of wetlands. And that, so basically 90% of what existed in 1965 is gone. Now, what we decided we want to do is look at wetlands and properties and lands that function like wetlands, whether or not they meet the Corps of Engineers definition of a wetland. So, those previous estimates were probably done on Corps of Engineers determined wetlands, but the Corps of Engineers definition doesn't really protect our wetlands and the functions that we need. So this is that 19 on the left. Here's that 1965 area that you saw just a minute ago on the other map. This second image is where the water is going to be when we reach 3.2 feet of sea level rise, which is currently projected for 2100, but so 80 years or so. But what we do know is that all the climate change predictions are happening sooner than they're predicted to happen. So this could be in our near future. So if we combine those two, we end up with this picture over here, which is what our study area. So this is kind of our wetland overlay area that combines what we know was wetlands in the past and what we suspect might be wetlands in the future. And in there, we had some criteria at looking for properties that or locations that had wetland functions. Either they're low or they flood a lot, or they're getting all the drainage from surrounding lands, things like that. And we identified those for study. So these are the ones that we've been working with, and it changes quite a bit every time I talk to David Dorn, who's doing all these mapping, because he's just a great researcher and he's always finding things. But we will put a stop on that when we issue our report, which will be coming out later this year. And the report gives fascinating discussion of each one of these parcels that has wetlands or wetland functions on it. And again, why do we care? Well, wetlands are home to native plants and animals. And so these are some of the things you might see out at our wetland where we're restoring. We have a kuli, we have kipukai, and we have, I think it's kahula. I might have that wrong. This grass, there's only a little bit of that one, but it's a native grass. But the plants that we're finding out there when we remove the invasives are doing really well. And it's important to know too that the wetlands have so much cultural value. This is our study area, and you see out here 1, 2, 3, 4 fish ponds. This area right here is the north end of Waipuilani Park at Kalani Hukoi Stream, and just across South Kihei Road, very nearby, is where David Mallow's church is. And at the time that he was there, there were freshwater pools and wetlands all the way from there down to the coast. And this is also the area where Cody is doing a wetland restoration project that's really beautiful. He's got it going good. He's been doing it a year now, and you can go out there with him every Saturday morning and work with him in that wetland. There is a fishing shrine. So clearly Kihei was an important area, or Kulakai, I should say, was an important area for fisheries with all these fish ponds. And these are just a couple of photos of what they actually look like. You can see them from Google Earth. And as we were saying, wetlands mitigate flooding. It's our natural infrastructure. And these are just some of the diagrams. This is out of the, a Kihei drainage map, and David Dorn's drawn in here where the directions that the water is going through these different wetlands. And this is what it looks like in a photo. All of these drainage basin to Yee's wetland. We call it Yee's wetland, not Yee's orchard, because it is a wetland, even though it's a functioning agricultural entity. And we have the ponds at the Piikea and Azeka. We have the Eva wetland, which is from the surface looks isolated, but yet the water drains into there and disappears. So it's infiltrating into the groundwater and going into the ocean. Oh, wrong way. Just the point again, all of these diagrams are showing you things about drainage. I won't spend much time on them because we don't have much time, but here's how the water moves through Kihei. It comes down the mountain and it goes through these subdivision drainages, and then it gets moved over here, and then it gets moved over here. And a lot of areas don't have drainage, so it's overland flow. A lot of areas that do have drainage, they discharge into the wetlands. So and the county is considering in their drainage plan routing 2 or 3 streams through Kalama Park, through the wetland there. So these are the kind of things we really need to start paying attention to. And, you know, when they say drainage improvement, does that mean an improvement to the environment or just to the drainage? And is there a happy medium where we can get both? And this is the one where we're working Laie wetland. It receives all the water up here from KCA drainage basin, the Ahupua'a, and the water comes from, some of it goes out the Welikahau property and comes out on South Kihei Road. Some of it, or most of it, goes under this bridge and comes out into what we call Laie Malka. And this is where you can see where it is here in the study area. And this is what it looks like from the air. This is where we're working, and you can see all these, a lot of salt deposits in this wetland. And I'll show you at the end a picture of what it looks like underneath there. You might not realize when you drive down South Kihei Road by Laie wetland, you're actually driving over a bridge. This is what it looked like before they covered it all over. This is what it looks like today. You know, so the water comes Laie Malka, and then it crosses to Laie Makai, and then goes out this way to the ocean. So it's South Kihei Road is in the middle of a wetland, in other words. Here's some of our crews out there. We have a work day the first Saturday of every month, and we're mainly pulling out the Indian fleabane and the pickleweed. Those are the two main invasives that we have. And so we take before and after pictures each time. The after looks kind of devastating because, you know, you have all this pretty green stuff here on the left, and then the after is like all brown and bare, and you have these big piles. This is where we're piling up the invasive species to make wind berms. And once you do that, the little tiny patches of native plants start to come back. So again, this is another work day, and that work day was a mighty work day. We had, I think, 30 people. And so we started out looking like the before picture, and there's everybody working in the wetland. And you see the after picture, you can see all these berms that they've built with the plant material, the invasive material that they've pulled out. And if you go out there today, you'll see little green patches of native plants growing everywhere. And this was the Labor Day weekend. We didn't get a big group of volunteers, but we got some mana wahine that got out there and got dirty, and we pulled a couple of big piles of the plants here. So all told, we've pulled over 8,000 cubic feet of invasive plants out of there. This last slide, this hole in the center, this is one of our observation holes. The water goes up and down here. It fluctuates with tide and with whether or not it's raining up country. The salinity also fluctuates, and this hole, you can see all the salt crusted up around it. The last time I checked this was 65 parts per thousand salinity. The ocean is 35. So this is hypersaline. The salt's getting concentrated because there's so much of it in the soil. But not too far away from there, there's two of these monitoring holes that have fresh water, which really surprised me because we thought it would be brackish, but no, it's fresh in the same wetland not far away. And then this is what I was telling you here at the upper left, some of the little native plant piles that are perking up and coming back. We haven't planted any native plants yet. We're going to do that in December, but the new plants are coming back on their own just because we've removed the invasives that were smothering them. And the keiki really like this. There's a lot of trash in the wetland. Interesting things. So this was called the wetland bar because they found so many beverage bottles that day. But we found, you know, cars, motorcycles, anchors, big chains, lots of tires, lots of parts of lawnmowers, just all kinds of crazy stuff out there. So our next work day is December 4th, 8 to 12 at Laie Malka Wetland, and you park at the Meta Spa next door. They've been very kind to support us in that way. Bring a water bottle, sun protection, gloves if you have them, but we have gloves if you don't have them. Wear closed-toe shoes. And on December 4th, we'll be planting for the first time, and we'll have some special gifts. t-shirts and other swag for our volunteers. This Thursday night, there's a very special event with Trinette Furtado, who's our cultural advisor, and we're going to do some kilo in the wetlands, which is when the constellation of Makali'i will rise along with Mahina. And this is a night where there is an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. And she's going to talk about the season of Lono and Makahiki and share with us how the Laie wetland got its name and the relation to the Mo'o Kiha Wahine. So it's going to be great. I can't wait for this. So that's Thursday night, 5 p.m. Meta Spa parking lot to meet and sign everybody up. And then we walk over to the wetlands. So that's all I had. If you want to find us, we have lots of social media. We have a website, savethewetlands.org. We're on Facebook under Maui Wetlands and South Maui Wetlands. And we have a Facebook group called Save the Wetlands, and we're Maui Wetlands on Instagram. So mahalo.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Robin. That was outstanding. And we remind guys that are watching, there was so much content there. Don't forget this is recorded, and you can go to the KCA website and go back and look for things that you say, oh, I didn't get to write that down, or I forgot. So instead of bugging Robin, what's Robin's phone number? I'll have to call and ask her. No, look at the video first and see if you can find it. So thank you so much, Robin. And we want to move right along. And
one more thing real quick. I know you got to move along. You reminded me, Mike, that we are going to schedule a longer talk like this, like an hour long, so we can show you many of the hundreds of things that we have to show you. And KCA, stay tuned to the KCA website, because Mike will be helping us get the word out on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Robin. And I'll just interject here very quick so I can turn it right over to our world traveler and South Maui representative, Kelly King. Thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us this evening. Take it away.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Robin, for that presentation. As the person who got this item into the county budget, that makes me really proud. And this is probably one of the fastest results I've seen from this kind of funding. So congratulations to the whole Save the Wetland who we, that was going to be one of my reports. Mike, I don't know if you're on limited time. It looks like we're at 7:30 already, and I wasn't sure how long you were going. So how much time do I have?
You have as much time as you want, Kelly King, but we try and wrap up by 8.
Okay.
But we did lose a little bit of time when the technology gremlins were in there, or Minahuni, I guess they are here, and stalled Robin starting. But no, we try and wrap up by 8 o'clock, but whenever you're done, you're done.
Okay, I'll because I had a lot of information. I kind of wanted to give you a high level overview of COP26. And you see the billboard behind me. These billboards were all over Glasgow and the around the blue zone, which is where the delegates were allowed in. So you had to have a delegate badge to get into the blue zone. But this one says urgently phase out fossil fuels or slowly phase out the grandkids with a question mark. So there were a lot of billboards like this urging the negotiators. The level of negotiators was high level, national delegations that were part of the making the agreements between the countries. And I did get to hear quite a bit of live speaking. I saw President Obama speak. I saw John Kerry speak. I had a direct meeting with myself and 3 mayors from across the country with Gina McCarthy, who is the White House National Climate Advisor. So I was able to, and I just wanted to share a little bit of the message. I've never worked so hard at a conference in my life. I went there and I had 3 speaking engagement, panel discussions, 1 PowerPoint presentation booked. And I think I ended up doing something like 13 by the time I was done because they kept adding things to my schedule. But I went there as a delegate from ICLE USA, which is an international organization. I'm on the board of directors for the US chapter. I was recruited for that about a year ago. And this is an organization with about 100 countries now are involved in it. We have 24 secretariat offices around the globe. And so the ICLE group had something like, I think, I'm not sure how many delegates we had, but we had 20 that we gave to the Scottish government. They were the host country, but they didn't get very many delegate seats. So we were able to share a pavilion with them. And several of my presentations or panel discussions were in that pavilion. So it was exciting because there were some high level people, you know, there's like the First Minister of Scotland was in our booth. There were some, I think I posted some pictures from the women's presentation, women business owners, and that was pretty much wrapped around a woman who had started a new whiskey distillery and another woman who was the head of the Whiskey Association in Scotland, and the First Minister, and other, you know, the other folks that were in that in the pavilion were supporting women leaders from around the globe. So it was a really well-rounded experience for me. The things that I was able to share were some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight, some of the things that we've done in Maui as climate leaders, and as some of the movements that we've made for in legislation in my committee, in the Climate Action Committee, are actually ahead of the state, and the state is trying to catch up to us now. So we're really happy about that. But the message for our booth, it was called the multi-level pavilion, and the message with our pavilion, the U.S. Climate Action Pavilion that I spoke at 4 times, the U.S. Center had that message, and then I spoke at the Japan Pavilion a couple of times. So the message among many of us who are representing cities and counties was the importance of our level of government being the implementers and enforcers of whatever comes out of the agreements, and whatever we choose to do on our own. There was a general agreement at the end of COP that not enough was done, that the agreements fell short of where we need to be. But for those of us who were presenting on panels together, and I presented on panels with mayors from countries like Brazil and states like Florida and Texas, who are not happy with their national leaders or their state leaders. And we talked about the importance of us going further than what our country has committed to, and that that it's going to be really important for us to stay in the game, regardless of what happens with our presidential election in 3 years. After, in the last 4 years, after President Trump took us out of the Paris Agreement, Maui County was one of the first ones to join a movement called We Are Still In. And this was cities and counties and states, even some school districts that made those statements about still being in on the climate action movement, still wanting to respect the agreements made at the Paris COP. And now we're saying, you know, now the statement is, and I spoke at the America is All In panel, although it was hard to say America is all in because we're not all in. Those of us who are all in, but you know, we all know the situation in our Congress and the fact that there's a lot of resistance to climate action. So that's a little bit of an ironic statement, but those of us in are going to be committed regardless of what happens in the next presidential election. And that gives us real hope. The other thing that gives us hope is, and I also heard our governor speak in one panel, 2 key takeaways from what Governor Ige said is, one, he talked about, because we're all talking about a just transition, he talked about the fact that Hawaii doesn't have any minorities, that we're all minorities, all of the different ethnic groups are minorities. And then the second thing, which was really important, is that he said carbon neutral is not enough. We have to go carbon negative. And then that sort of sparked the conversation going forward for me about the fact that those of us who are willing and able have to do more than the we have to do more than we agreed to. We have to do more than carbon neutral, because we have to make up for the ones who aren't doing anything, who aren't able to do it or not willing to do it. And we don't have time to sit around and point fingers and fight about why they're not doing it. We just, everybody who can needs to move forward. So there's a real commitment towards that. And there was a lot of sharing of ideas. So I want to go through some of the things that, some of the things that we've done through my climate action committee. And some of this happened happily while I was gone, because there was a big council meeting while I was gone, and there were several things on there that I was hoping would pass. And I just, being on the other side of the world, I didn't have the time to try to log in the middle of the night. But logistically, some of this you may know, some of you have seen the notices about our district office opening while I was gone. I think they opened on November 1st, and we're working out all the kinks. Daniel Kanahele has been hired as our full-time staffer for that office, which is in the MEDB complex, Suite 9. So if you go around, when you come into the parking lot, if you go around to the right side, or on the side of that building that faces the brewery, I've also given an office space or desk space to a representative, Tina Wilderberger. So I'm happy to have her there. I'm personally, I don't know if the picture, Tina, if that picture that you're showing is in our district office. It looks like one of the corners. But I personally won't be in there till probably another week, but I'm in self-quarantine right now. I'm just making sure, even though we were testing every day at COP26, I want to make sure that after arrival here that I wait 3 days and test myself before I go out and meet face to face with anybody. But Daniel's been there every day, and my other staff, one of my other staffers from the Wailuku office who lives in Kihei, Ellen McKinley, will be working out of there a lot. So she's been in and out of there. We're still outfitting it, and we expect that we'll be equipped by mid-January to host anybody who wants to testify live from our district office. So that was one of the main purposes that this office was set up. And there will be whatever the CDC restrictions are for COVID, we will be adhering to for that office. Let's see, moving through my list of reporting today, I did get a notice. I got a text from Fire Chief Brad Ventura, and you might have seen his press release or his Facebook post that ocean safety officers are again on duty at McKenna. So that's been funded at least for half the year. They took some money away from us, but we're working with state officials, and I think he might have contacted Tina as well to try to get the rest of the money that we were originally promised to fill out the entire year. But we're happy, and that the issue of liability is again going to be at the state legislature. Maui County will be supporting that, as well as the Hawaii State Association of Counties. So if you've read the agenda for the council meeting coming up on Friday, you'll see that the HSAC legislation package is on there, as well as the Maui County legislative package. And these are pieces of state legislation that we will be endorsing through Maui County and then through the Hawaii State Association of Counties. And there are a couple of key environmental issues in some of these bills. One is the Coastal Zone Management Act, and that would be lowering the size threshold for development requiring SMA permit from 7,500 square feet down to 5,000 square feet. So if you want to take a look through the council agenda, you can see the different pieces of legislation will be hopefully supporting this year. While I was gone, I was also happy that the sunscreen bill passed first reading, and that's and I was able to brag about it at COP after once it passed first reading and unanimously. But that is the most stringent chemical sunscreen ban in the world. And so I did have some requests for copies of the legislation that other jurisdictions may want to follow suit. And I've actually had a request from DLNR to put that in their press release, which I want to wait till the second and final reading happens. But really appreciate you, Mike Moran, and KCA for supporting that bill. We had by the time we brought the bill up in committee, we had so much support for it, so much data, so much advocacy that I think there was nowhere to go but to vote for it. But it's a bold move. No one's come out with banning every chemical sunscreen and only allowing the 2 minerals. But I think we're going to see a move towards this at the state level, because the state has asked for a copy of our bill as well. The other one that passed second and final reading is the net zero requirement for new large homes, 5,000 square feet and over. And this was something too that resonated when I talked about it at COP26, because folks realize they have to get there, and there are a lot of jurisdictions that want to get there with this kind of legislation. They haven't quite got there yet. But that one is, it's law now. It passed second and final reading. The Wetlands Bill that I've been working on, and Robin Knox has been a very good supporter and resource for that bill, as well as DLNR and NOAA. That has passed through to the Planning Commission. So that's the first step for that bill, is to go to the Planning Commission, get comments from them, and then bring it back to committee. And there was a resolution that passed that I quickly put in the week before I left for the council meeting. That was a resolution to support the Edinboro Declaration, which commits the county to focusing on biodiversity, which we actually already have. The Sunscreen Bill is actually a biodiversity bill. If you think about us trying to protect the marine life and the coral life there. The Wetlands Bill is a biodiversity bill. We all have seen the biodiversity in the wetlands. So this allowed us to get on the world stage and sign, not after the resolution was approved by the county council. And the mayor actually, I gave the information to our managing director, and he got the mayor to make a proclamation, so that when I signed on, I was signing on for our county administration and legislative branch, and committing our forward movements to protecting biodiversity. And around that same time, I got an email from Jay Penniman from the Maui Nui Bird Refuge Protection Organization. And they have some legislation they are going to be proposing through my committee. So we'll be working directly on the seabird issue as well. Let's see what else happened. The Kihei High School, I think Tina went over that, the crossing, and there has been I don't know if Tina mentioned the North Kihei Road Canoe Club, the dangerous left turns and crossings that have kind of reared up as an issue in the last month or so. But that is, I think, Mike, you are involved in testifying on that and sending emails back and forth, and that's a state highway, so we can support it, but there's nothing I can do directly, although it may be an issue that the MPO can work on. So those are the main highlights of what's happened while I've been gone. Oh, the other thing that happened that we just found out about is that the mayor did finally issue his formal written request to DLNR for the executive order turning over the parking lots at Ke'awakapu Beach to the county. So we're on our way with that. I'm not sure how fast it takes the state to move next, but while I was in Scotland, I was able to spend some time with BLNR chair Suzanne Case. She actually spoke at the Edinboro Declaration and committed the state to biodiversity as well. And so she'll be speaking at my care committee meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in my climate action, resilience, and environment committee. We have a panel of about 6 people, and 3 of them were at COP with me, not with me, but COP at the same time as me. And so we'll be hearing reflections from Senator Chris Lee, from Joshua Cooper of UH, who also works with human rights folks in the United Nations, and he works on the Sustainable Development Goals. So he was there. My husband and I shared an apartment with him for the second week. So we got a lot of time to reflect on what was happening there. And Suzanne Case will also be speaking there, along with the Department of the State Department of Energy, and then we have the Climate Change Committee or Climate Change Office from the Mayor, Alex DeRode speaking, as well as Darla Palmer, who heads up the Climate Action Advisory Committee, the CAAC. So the point of tomorrow's meeting is to take part of what we learned and know that has been agreed to at the COP26 and figure out top priorities, have a discussion about top priorities moving forward. What can we do that keeps moving the envelope forward? The state will be, I think, picking up on our net zero large homes bill. They had come and testified at our committee hearings, and they were very excited that we were moving ahead with this because they call this a bellwether for the state legislation. This is where they want to go. They also want to move on the sunscreen bill. So we've been able to kind of live and breathe the message of multi-level collaboration, which was one of the themes running through COP26 too. There was a real focus on city and county level governments, but also city and county level working horizontally across the globe with other cities and counties, and then working vertically within our own state with the city, county, state levels of government. And I feel like that's really happening now more than ever. And I think this commitment from the COP26 is going to strengthen that. So I'm excited about being able to formulate. I spoke to Nicole Lowen, who was at COP26 for about 3 or 4 days, about putting together a multi-level committee to work on climate change issues. So, because what we're doing right now is the state's working on their things, we're working on our things, and then the governor talks to the mayors and gets them to sign proclamations committing to things like renewable transportation, but then we don't really know, we don't see what's happening from that. So bringing together the people who are committed to action and who are committed to this work, measurements is going to be really key, and we should do that across all levels of government so that we know what we're doing together. So that's one of the things I think that will come out of this. Then my committee, we're going to be working in the next few months on benchmarks and trying to set into ordinance goals for maybe the next 5 years, and then certainly a goal for where we should be by 2030. So I'm hoping that that's going to reflect not just where our country wants to be via this agreement, but going beyond to carbon negative, and working with the Climate Action Advisory Committee, working with the other 3 counties in our state, working with the state legislators and the governor's office. So I'm really actually very hopeful. There was a lot of protests. There was a lot of, at COP26, there were groups, especially young groups of people who were upset because they weren't in what we called the blue zone. They weren't in the discussions, but their voices were heard, and they were brought into to some of the panel discussions, some of them virtually, and they wagged their fingers and they stomped their feet and they said, "Here's what you guys, older generation, what you need to be doing." They really called us out, and I think they were well respected, and they were listened to. And those of us on the ground at the very lowest levels of government are kind of recommitted to doing our best and moving forward as fast as we can. So that's my report, and happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Whoops. Well, I don't see any questions because the questions would be in the chat. I think some of the viewers were kind of overwhelmed. We got a few questions for Tina, but once Robin came and then you too, I didn't see any questions pop up. but I will tell you, Kelly, number one, you're amazing that you're doing all this stuff. And I did view that council meeting when you were not there. And toward the end of it, Chair Lee said, gee, I hope Kelly knows everything she had on this agenda passed today. And somebody said, oh, I'm sure one of her EAs is texting or, communicating to her. And I was thinking, well, yeah, but it's the middle of the night. But I thought, well, what a nice greeting to get up when you do get up in the morning to get some good news from back home.
Yeah, I was up till I think 1 a.m. waiting for that text to find out.
Oh, sure.
I've been wanting to talk about it in real time, so I was able to. Because I spoke the next day on a panel discussion, and I was able to say, hey, this just in. So really excited, and I thought, hey, maybe that's the trick to getting my bills passed is just don't go to the meeting.
And we really appreciate that. That's what I was trying to tell some guys. You're going to get your first report on this even before Kelly is at her own committee meeting tomorrow morning. Tuesday night, you're getting information from her directly to the KCA folks. So we really appreciate that and know there's a ton of information, but you certainly enlightened us. And as one of the many, many old guys, I'm telling those kids, you're right, go on. Yes, it's your life. I'll be gone when South Kihei Road is underwater. So yes, demand action. You're absolutely right. And fortunate for them, we have representatives like you, as you said, maybe the lower echelon, but hopefully it goes up the chain and we get more. But you mentioned good things about what the governor said. So Maui does seem to lead the way in at least the last decade. We see a lot of KCA, Maui leading the way in county government through this council. So as I mentioned to an old timer, I said, this is the best council I've seen. He said, Mike, it's the best council ever. I've been here since they had a council. This is the best one ever. So, and you're a big part of that, Kelly. So we truly appreciate it and feel very fortunate that we have you representing our district.
Well, thank
So
you.
I was trying to keep quiet, and I think I did pretty good for the meeting, but I know we're probably at that, almost at that witching hour of 8 o'clock, and some guys don't eat until after the meeting, so some are waiting to grab a bite. But we'll be watching tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., either on the computer for Blue Jeans or on Channel 53 to see that panel that you talked about, Kelly.
Okay, and then we will be posting on my Facebook page as soon as I get everything sorted out. We'll be posting the panel discussions that I was on. I think there were about 10 of those, and then there were some interviews I did, but I'm not sure if we got those YouTube recordings yet. Just to let people see, I think it's a real source of pride, because when I was talking about Maui County and our focus on the just transition and the economic diversity, as well as the circular economy that we're trying to build, that just really resonated with folks. And so I kept getting invited back to do more panel discussions. And so it was exhausting. Out of the 2 weeks of COP, I had 1 day off. They closed it down on Sunday and they let everybody go explore for 1 day. But other than that, I was working most of the days. And it was, just to share a little bit with folks, it was not an easy ordeal just getting in. It was Bob would drop me off at the train station. I'd take a train and then I'd walk at least a quarter mile to the entrance of Blue Zone. Then you get in and you have to go through all kinds of security and like airport security and walk another quarter of a mile to get where you're going. And so, I did get a lot of exercise, but my feet were sore almost constantly.
Gosh, so not only mental, physical as well. What an ordeal. But
Yeah.
we're
And I did
certainly
get to see, and I should let folks know too, that I did get to meet with Sophia Davis, who was a graduate from Kihei Charter School, who's now at the University of Glasgow, studying medical biotechnology, I think she said she called it. And I also took at the end, we took a drive up to the Scottish Highlands, and we met with Edinboro, which is the sister city to Molokai. So even on my time off, I was working.
Wow. So you came home to rest and recuperate.
I got home Monday morning at 12:30 a.m. and now we're in committee week. So I was back in committee at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Well, yes, I told you, and I mentioned to some of the folks that I didn't know exactly when you got back, but I knew when it wrapped up, and I knew you were on the other side of the world. And that was my bit of humor. I expected when you appeared at county council that your image would be inverted because of the jet lag. You'd still be what? But no, you were right in the discussion and you came back. So I don't know how you accomplished that with the jet lag. Gosh, most folks are exhausted coming here from California, and you went from the other side of the world. So one more feather in your cap, Kelly. What a traveler.
It was a good experience, and I was so proud, being on some of those panels and talking about what we're doing on Maui. And really, the KCA is a big part of that. So I really appreciate everybody in this meeting.
Thanks, Kelly. And we do too to the other Wahine. We have to keep getting more women in these positions. We see how good things are going and supporting them. So we appreciate Robin and Tina, and a little peek that we got from Dr. Cording, and she'll be back in January. So thank you so much to everyone. And we used to always say, drive home safe. Now we don't have to say that anymore. One of the lemonades from the COVID lemon guys are home doing these meetings. So mahalo to everyone, and safe holidays, and we will see you next year. Ahui ho.
Ahui ho.